Hi everyone, this is Heather Lottinen from the Flourish.Academy. This is episode 506, and of course the title was a rhetorical question. I don't really think that you want to lose your photos via a corrupt memory card. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever put your card either in a reader with your computer or back in your camera and it says, error, cannot read card? Has that happened to you? And what have you done to recover your cards? Post below, please leave a comment that will help others. I think every photographer should own some type of photo recovery software. Personally, I own Photo Rescue from a company called Data Rescue. There are a million of them out there. There are a lot, and they are super inexpensive, and everybody should own it. Oh, but that reminds me, the reason this came up is because we were talking about it in the Flourish Academy community group on Facebook. Are you in that group? You need to be. I'll post the link below somewhere. There will be a link to join the community group. It's free, it's private, it's full of positive, wonderful, encouraging photographers because that's the environment I created. But today we're talking about memory card hygiene. So the cameras that I use now, they shoot with SD or secure digital cards, where my old cameras were CF, compact flash cards. But there's still hygiene. Yes, thank you, Mike. Mike just said, always format your card in camera, never with computer. Mike is correct. That is the number one rule. Thank you for starting us that way, because the very first thing I do before a shoot is when I put my memory card into my camera, I format the card for that camera. Now, of course, this is assuming that what was ever on this card is already on your computer, your external hard drive, and backed up, because formatting the card erases it. But the question is, I say this all the time, format it in the camera, and sometimes people listen, sometimes people don't listen, or maybe they're not sure why. So I'm going to explain to you why. What happens when your memory card gets put into a camera? By the way, this is especially important if you shoot with multiple bodies. But every camera writes a few hidden files to the card, files that you can't see so that it can communicate with the card. If you use a reader, which I do, I don't connect my camera to my computer, I use a card reader. When you do that and you connect to your computer writes a couple little hidden files so that it can talk to the card. These are not files that you see. Over time, these files will stack up on top of one another, and eventually they will become corrupt because they will conflict. Over time, it is bound to happen. But that will not happen if every time you put the card into the camera, you format for the camera. If you're not sure how to format your card in your camera, you can look it up. It's really easy. It's usually just a couple of buttons. Sometimes you have to go through the menu, but usually it's like, hold this button, then press this button for 2 seconds, and it will say, do you want to format your card? To which you say yes. Always, always format my cards in the camera as I am going to a session. That way I know that they're clean, they're good, they're going to communicate with the camera, and that's great. Then I copy them to my hard drive, I back them up, they're on my external, then back in the camera, repeat. Now, if it's a wedding, I take it to the next level of freakishness because I will not reuse that card until I have actually delivered the wedding. So essentially, I want those photos to be in 3 locations before I format this card. Any other type of session, my personal work, or just, an engagement session or a senior session, I will make sure it's backed up in 2 places before I format that card, but I will reuse the card. If you only have 1 card, buy a few more. They're super cheap. My favorite right now are the Pro Master Rugged. YM Camera has them. I'm shooting with 64 gig cards. I get a ton of images on those cards. You can shoot with whatever you want. That's just my personal preference, and I have a handful of these. I actually number these so I know what order they are. Back in the day, when I was really next level, I would put an in-service date on the card, so I would know exactly when I purchased the card. It would have a number, and periodically I would cycle them out. That was just because I'm a wedding photographer, and I'm very risk averse and I didn't want to take any chances. Okay, but let me tell you about these 2 corrupt card issues I was helping some of the members of the Flourish Academy with in the past few days. So in one case, what had happened was the photographer was shooting a wedding. She was shooting Canon, and her second shooter was shooting Nikon, and they shared cards between cameras. That is the biggest no-no, that is like the worst thing you could do to a memory card, here is why. Canon writes hidden files to the card so it can communicate. Nikon does the same thing. They almost always conflict really quickly. Like I was saying a moment ago, if you do it over time and you're using the same camera, the conflict, it won't happen the first time that you reuse the card. It'll happen years from now. But if you are switching between camera systems, it tends to happen more rapidly. I don't know why. These files just don't get along. So it goes corrupt, the card does, and it says cannot read. Okay, they're all recoverable via recovery software. If you insert the card into a reader and it mounts to your computer, what I mean by mount is that it shows up. You can see it. Then you're usually good because the photo recovery software can read it and find the files. If your card doesn't mount at all, then we have a little bit more serious of an issue. But I have found that happens in my estimation about 1% or less of the cases. Super, super rare. But that was preventable. They were sharing cards between camera systems. That is a huge no-no. Don't do it. Okay, in the other case, the person had just been reusing cards in the same camera for, I don't know, a couple of years or so, and these files just conflicted, and all of a sudden, none of her cards would work. It kept saying format card. It didn't say error, but it said format card. And she wanted to know, why is it saying that? And I said, because you never formatted the card. And these files, it just got a whole bunch of these hidden files. They were not speaking nicely to one another. And the card's like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to work anymore. So I advised her that every time this card goes into the camera, assuming these photos have been backed up, because formatting erases cards, I'm making sure I say that. If you think it's obvious, if you're a new photographer, how would they know that? They're not going to know. It's not that obvious. Formatting erases all the photos. So make sure the photos are backed up. The card goes into the camera. The camera formats the card for every single session. I have had one, maybe two. I want to say one, but I don't want to lie to you. I'm trying to remember. I mean, it's been 16 years. I think I've only had one card that went corrupt, and it was not because of card hygiene. It just, maybe I had used it too long. I don't know. I was able to recover the photos. When I was able to recover the photos from that card, it was a compact flash card back in the day. I promptly threw it in the trash, keeping in mind that back then, for me to purchase a 1 gigabyte CF card, it was $500. So if you say, oh, Heather, I only have a couple of cards. I don't have enough cards to shoot my sessions. You guys, they're so inexpensive. Go pick up a few and please don't ever cry to me about the cost of cards. I don't want to hear it. You could have a stack of these. I have some friends that shoot on these cards and they buy a new card for everything they shoot and they just stack the cards and here's their backup. Hey, I guess that's fine if it works for you. I don't have a problem. Again, as a wedding photographer, I number these. I put an in-service date so I know how long I've used them, and I will just periodically take them out of wedding rotation. I'll still use them for personal use, but not for weddings, because that's me being like next level freak. Okay, it's not one of these cards, but I have a card somewhere, it must be in my case, that has a giant W written on it in Sharpie. I write on these in Sharpie because I washed it. It went through my washer, maybe even my dryer. I think I found it in the pocket of my jeans, which is really random because I don't ever keep cards in pockets. I'm not sure how that happened. Actually, I'm quite embarrassed because I have a system for everything. So I'm not sure what happened there. But I put a W on it because it was washed, but it still works. So I use it in my personal work, but I would never use it for clients. Also, back in the day when the CF cards were big, I would put my name and phone number and I would say, reward if found. I don't care about the card. I care about what's on the card. Now that was never necessary. I never dropped a card or lost a card, but I actually know people that have. Can you imagine if somebody just randomly finds your card, maybe they can look at the photos and connect with you, but chances are they can't, depending on where this was. You know, if you were on vacation, that would be really hard to track down that person. So I always had my first name and my phone number, and it said reward if found. Now these are so tiny. I imagine you could print little labels and put on them. I don't know. I don't do that now because I don't shoot as many weddings, and I don't know. I'm just more careful about how I handle my cards. If you have any questions about card hygiene, I implore you to ask them, because I get an emergency call, email, text, message, whatever, about, I would say, 2 to 3 times per month with photographers who have corrupt cards. And my estimation, 90 to 95% of those are preventable with proper card hygiene. What have we learned here? Don't share cards between camera systems, like, ever. I mean, you can format it, right? If you're going to format it. If you shoot multiple bodies, or even if you only shoot one body, every time this card goes into the camera, you're starting a session, format it. Have backup cards, have spare cards, have cards for your cards, and hopefully you'll never run into any issues. But if you do, know that there is photo software, rescue, recovery software out there that works most of the time. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I hope that you found this useful. I'll see you in the next video.